Stream is up. Check it. Streamer's up there. If you could let me know how it is. It's up a couple minutes early.
I'm not kidding. Oh, really?
Cool. Stream's good. You're good.
All right, I'll be ready. Oh, yeah. No time. Like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, yeah, I'll be right there. That's all right. Oh, really? Yeah, no, that's what I figured. I was like, are you good or what? Yeah. Oh, you guys get that? Oh, really? Oh, yeah. When I got back, I was like, I know you guys are still hiring me for front-end developers. She keeps us flying. Like, she's in yeah, a lot of yeah, she's so she keeps us like, I'm like, hey, you should see it. I don't get belligerent right now. Like, you know, if you had hired someone, they hired them on your sacrifice. Let me come down. Bring a box down to the HQ.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started this bright Saturday morning. So how's everyone doing today? So can I get a fist to 5 on how great this morning is? 0 being I woke up and my dog ate all my breakfast. 5 being this is a great day. 3s, 4s, a couple 5s. So this whole my dog ate my breakfast, that actually happened to me this week. I had breakfast all out, a nice toast with avocado and 2 hard-boiled eggs sitting on the counter. Went to go take a shower, get ready for my meeting. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna eat this right for my meeting in 15 minutes and my food's done. Like 1 piece of spinach, like lettuce is hanging off from there. Like power, like, oh crap, like I shouldn't have done that. I look at my dog, I'm like, did you eat my damn breakfast? She's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The dog's way too smart, man. I did not cower anything. But mine's a 5 because I actually got my breakfast and the dog didn't actually get to it, so that was good. There are a couple things I want to cover really quick. So we are going to be doing 2 React sessions after class today and next week. 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
What's up? And it is after class today, and it's after when everyone's supposed to be here. So if she put the wrong dates, know that it will not be a Friday. No one will be here on a Friday. It's going to be on Saturday. The other thing you should understand is that there are no other cohorts getting this, right? Like we customize what's happening in this class based on goals, right? So again, everything's about real world simulation for me. So I understand React's difficult. And that is why you've been seeing Carson or even Tucker in some cases teaching React stuff, because I understand you guys can read code at this point. So we're diving into React a little more with regards to understanding what's happening in React. Time for you to be missing class. Anybody who's missing class and has a goal of getting a job in React, you should probably start driving here right now. That's a really true statement. You are not going to learn this type of invest remotely when you have all of these resources here. A room full of TAs, instructor, other students who pick things up, other students who are struggling, asking the right questions. Like, this is the environment you want to be in. This is the environment you paid for. You can go ahead and start working on your Udemy course if you want to, right? So if it's really important, if you want to learn React, that you get into class, because this is an environment that you can run by other team members. So I did want to make sure that the other thing too, hand-holding in this class. Recognize that. Real world simulation again. You're not going to be able to turn to a senior developer and go like, hey, what is this? The very first question they're going to ask you is, what do you know about this so far? What did you look up? That question right away, they're probably not a senior developer, because that is exactly what they get tired of answering, those questions over and over and over and over again without someone being self-sufficient, right? So if they don't do that up front, they will do it in the next 3 years. So I'm trying to make sure that you guys are self-sufficient in regards to answering questions for yourself, looking things up, and working. So again, the message there is, we haven't been hand-holding to this point in course. Material, you shouldn't expect us to hand-hold at this juncture. We're at week 20, right? All of a sudden you should be like, oh my God, this is new. Please help me through this, right? It's not happened to this point now. It's not going to happen right now, right? The things that have changed is that we've moved things to be more technical because you can read code now. That's really what's changed. And I thought that would be more helpful for a lot of you guys. So, any questions at all about anything in the course up to this point? No? Good. So the second portion of that is the fact that I am trying to get, like, my old technical mentor, which I haven't seen probably in about 6 weeks. Trying to get a hold of him. It's happening this week. Interviewing shouldn't really be an issue. My brother shouldn't be an issue either. I just need to find out what his next 2 Saturdays look like. But I'm going to have a list sent out today for anybody who wants to go into one-on-one interviews to get a feel for what the interview process would look like. Because it would happen over 2 Saturdays, I don't know if they can commit that. So I want to just get a view of how many are interested. I'm going to have them come in and overview the things that they would see or request and do. So I'd have them kind of give a quick lecture on that on the next 2 Saturdays, or even the 2 Saturdays after that, depending on when holiday falls in.
So like, I totally get where you're coming from as far as having, if there's too many people that want to know about it, happen. But I think it's more beneficial to kind of just keep each person's perspective, you know, just.
Well, I'm trying to make it as efficient as possible. The reality is, if you really wanted a job in development, and that's your goal at the end of this class, and you haven't gone to at least 1 interview, you're behind. That's the reality, right? I've talked to a couple of you about going out and just getting interviews. Not even because you cared to get through the interview process, because you needed to see it, right?
I kind of disagree. Like,
Go ahead.
being able to interview is great, but having better. I mean, you have to have your skills like
Between weeks.
because they're gonna ask you technical questions. they're gonna test your technical skills because that's what you're gonna be doing. You have to know it, like just knowing the basics of it doesn't matter. We cover a lot of this course, and you're not gonna do all of it in your job, your day-to-day job. You're gonna do one thing. So you have to get really, really good at that. I would recommend React. I mean, you get prepared. There's a lot of stuff coming to React. And I mean, after you learn it, it's pretty easy to learn from now. I would read the documentation. Has anyone gone through the whole documentation and read it? Homework, right? So read it. There should be a example app that they have you build. When I first did it, was a tic-tac-toe game. I don't know if it's still the same. I'm learning something new that I've never seen before. I read the docs, go through their example app that they have it built, and usually makes no fucking sense, right? That's how it was the first time I learned React. I was like, I have no idea what that says. You watch some videos, but it starts making sense after a while. So you just have to keep doing it.
At what point were you comfortable enough to go get a job and interview for React from that get-go?
About 3 months.
You were comfortable, or were you scared?
Scared until I started coding. It took me like literally 2 to 4 days at work. But
My point is, from the beginning of when he started that to when he got 3 months in, or 4 days, whatever that was you said, syndrome going into that React interview. Guaranteed it. Guaranteed it. Because imposter syndrome will follow you for years.
and
right?
And that will happen until you see some code. And then you're like, I'm comfortable now.
And then someone will throw something you don't know, and you'll be back to imposter syndrome, right? So then, I don't know if you work with Docker instances, someone will throw Docker instances, you gotta figure this out, you're back to imposter syndrome. React does an update from React Router 4 to React Router 5, you gotta figure this out, back to imposter syndrome. It's been happening since fucking VB, right? But it's been happening since that, right? The update of technology, is my point, is gonna continue. You're going to be uncomfortable all the time. Even when you start to understand these stacks and get into them, you're going to end up in something new. You're like, there's similarities here, but there's differences. What are the differences? And someone's like trying to deep dive your expertise on this. A great example of that is when React was first coming out, everyone was posting jobs for React like 3 years. But React hadn't been around for 3 years. And everyone wants a job in React for 3 years of experience, right? So, although I agree, my point is that you're competing with Alex, with Isidro, with Tucker, with Carson in the real world of getting a job. You're actually competing with these guys. The way that you close the gap is return on relationships, right? Being out and networking, that's how you close the gap. Being out and going to an interview and being real about where your skills are. I think there's actually like 2 or 3 students in the Tuesday, Thursday class who already have jobs that have been taking advantage of trying to do that, right? So are they like completely ready to be doing it? Probably not, but they're actually there learning, right? And that's where you want to be. So definitely, I'm not saying don't read the docs and don't do this on the React side, but I'm saying that you need to understand the interview process. Going to go through it is when you go through it when you're like completely not ready, or when you go through it when you feel you're confident. The likelihood of getting a yes on the first time is probably going to be slim to none anyway on both of those, because of who you're competing against. Is my point. And so I'm not doing that to discourage you. I'm doing that to get out and network. Right? There are a lot of meetups around these types of things. Get out and network. I know a lot of you guys have want to get jobs in this field, and that's all I'm trying to say, because that's literally what's happening in regards to you can't expect to be a piece of paper just sitting in some front of the desk that your resume is going to get you into the job. Right? It's better if someone put a name to a face. So that's any other questions though. And I don't know if I answered your question though, Jesse. Is that really?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Because I don't know what that really like looks like from a Like, I know I want to simulate that as best as possible. I think I've even mentioned that to another student. This is a training simulation, right? It's ultimately like the way I'm viewing it, a class to learn it, but there's simulation. You should be simulating from all aspects of it, and I'm trying to simulate that. And I don't know if you guys truly got simulation of what the interview would look like. I have no idea what happened on the career side. I'm trying to have it.
So when we do get jobs, right, and we aren't where the rest of the coders are, I guess it depends on the work environment that you're in. But is it okay to, like, you know, with the team, to, look, like, I'm still learning this. Like, is there any time that I mean, obviously you're gonna have to put in your own hours, but like connecting with your team and like sharing with them what you can work on and what you can't work on, like, how does that work out in the field?
They know where you are when you come in.
Right.
Yeah.
Understand that. They're gonna know where you are.
Any job.
Yep.
You don't expect you to every.
And a lot of the stacks aren't exactly the same, right? They're using React with like 4 different companies using different backends, right? So the stacks are really the same. It's really about understanding where you are and the difference. So the conversations I've had with recruiters, they've literally asked me, how do I find a really good dedicated developer? I'm like, you don't hire an old guy like me. It's actually what I've told them. You gotta hire someone that's passionate to learn, that's reading all the documents, looking it up, putting in time, staying up to 1 o'clock in the morning. Alex is doing all those things, right? And because there's passion, he likes developing, he likes coding. And then you get someone who's more old school, like myself, who was a Java and C#, and this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna build it the same models that we always built it, like leading teams. And in reality, for them, they can actually pay someone with more passion less upfront to close the gap, because they'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning figuring that problem out. The older guy is gonna be like, I'm gonna go home, I'll figure it out tomorrow.
And I think my last question, if there were 2 companies that were looking at you, one of them wanted to bring you on right on, the other one wanted to send you for like training, which one would you recommend?
Yeah. I mean,
Hopefully,
feel
yeah.
free to queue in on anytime. I appreciate you queuing in because they're different perspectives, right? Because they are competing against you. But I do agree that is your choice. You just got to be careful about what they're trying to do. Because this happens in marketing, by the way. So if anyone has really good marketing skills or like for projects, they'll have you do a project to get in, right? To talk to them. And then they ask for all these intricate things and then they don't hire you. And then they take your same strategy and they execute it. So you got to be careful about what you're doing for those quote unquote 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And you're new, but they could just take your code like, thanks, that was a 10-week contract. And gap.
Yeah, I would agree with Aaron. Like, you have to be really careful. What's more important to you at that time? Is it getting a job? Because if that's the case, don't go to the 10-week course that you might not end up with a job, you know? Or is it working for this better company? Is a 10-week course for a company that's leagues better and way more fun than the other company? You have to know that there's risk on the other side that you won't get a job. That risk, don't take it. Like, you know, you have to make the decision, judge what's most important in your life at that moment, basically.
Anything else across any of these topics? We're just going to dive into React. Go ahead, Kyle.
So what do you, for having your brother and your mentor come in, what are you thinking for that right now?
I'm trying to make that happen next week, which is really short notice for them, but they also owe me favors. So, but realistically, it's probably going to be the week after. But yeah, I'm going to actually have, we're going to draw out a quick list to kind of see who's interested in that, right? To make it happen. I might probably have to coordinate with these guys because they also have resources, right? Depending on what their availability is, I could go to developers that work at where we work as well. But these guys have network as well. They're coding, right? So we'll tap into those and see who can get in here to kind of run through those technical exams and really. So my brother's side is not going to be techno. It's really going to be a real world simulation. If you showed up, I want to know how you're going to show up to an interview. So show up like you show up to an interview. And he'll answer more culture questions, just questions that you will see in normal interview type, and then get really direct feedback. Right? And I've already kind of mentioned these things to you. You got to be aware of your audience, right? You can't show up to a suit and a tie, and you're going to Snapchat, right? I've actually made that mistake. I've showed up because I came from corporate, right? So it's all, and then on the flip side, you can't show up in like, your nice jeans, shoes, and a nice dress shirt, and probably go to Intel, right? Depending on what the culture, I don't know Intel's culture, but American Express, I'm talking about these corporate guys, the suit guys, right? So you got to be aware of your audience when you're doing that. Hell, would you guys hire someone who walked in with a suit?
I wore a suit and I got hired, so I guess.
You guys are a small company.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's one of those weird things where you got to kind of be aware of your audience and like what you're doing. There's just a different side to it, the interview process. So yeah. Cool. Anything else? Anything else to add to that? These conversations?
Not really. I agree a lot with Aaron that technical jobs are great. They're going to get you really far. But really what makes a difference in the interview, you could be interviewing against 50 other people who have just as much technical skill as you. How do you stand out? If you're more professional, more experienced in the interview, you're more confident, you like, I can do this job. You're actually like, it's a privilege for you to hire me, not for me to work for you, kind of a thing. That helps. Obviously don't be arrogant. But going into the interview, knowing that you can do it and what they're giving you is more of a formality rather than anything. I feel like advantages in interviews is I don't get nervous anymore like I used to. Walk in the interview and it's like, whatever. I don't know it. It's the end of the story. And if that's it, meeting people, getting experience talking to people, knowing what they're looking for, like networking, the interview process is invaluable. Like it's just
something like not as like mostly like sometimes they just need a person with a personality.
Yep. Sometimes it's
how much they know. They
yep.
say because we have this team and we like this kind of people that because they know more or because
yep.
And usually in that case though, they're looking for passion. Or like actually love coding. The other thing too you'll notice, mentioned confidence, is that there actually is confidence. Personal confidence. When we go out and interview, I'm actually the same way. Confident that I'm the best person for this role, and like literally that's my thought process. So I'm not nervous when I go into it. Practice, but it is important to be aware that there's confidence. Are you the same way on doing? You're kind of confident when doing?
Obviously, but not when I start talking. I don't start talking.
Yeah. So I think it's important to actually exude confidence in a lot of those roles, because if you doubt yourself, they start to doubt you as well. Just in with people without.
Interviewing is probably one of the least exact sciences out there ever. So you could kill the interview, but they could say, well, that person was great, but they just like Raina was saying, and you just won't get it. So you also can't let that bring you down. So then you weren't the right fit for the job. That totally happens.
We went to the job in San Diego into it, but he had an interview at American Express, and he was going into it just for the practice. So he didn't want the job, and he was telling me like I was actually kind of mad dogging like the interviewer. He was just like, "Are you?" Question, and he was like, "I thought it was gonna be just like a anything, like, and I actually got a job offer." And like, so it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, obviously, don't go in there just like talking shit.
Don't do this either.
You guys know Steve Joe's first. Yeah, it's like know that. he has that confidence, and it's like, okay, the dude can job done. Really caring about getting that job, so obviously he wasn't nervous.
I have a question, Carson. If you went to a job offer or to a job interview and like, laptop and like walk out, like that's what I imagine myself doing.
No, I mean, actually, like if I obviously you're going to vet the requirements first, and like now I had to do a bunch of algorithms questions on a whiteboard, and I had done a little bit of that. Never, you know, I don't have a CS degree, most degree, right? So a lot of us haven't experienced it. Thankfully, I had it. That was great, but I didn't know the answer. What got me the job was how I asked, you know, questions I had, how I ended up solving the problem. Like I solved all the problems, and apparently I got them solved well because I asked the right question, asked the questions. Didn't say, look, I don't know the answer to this. I know you know I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to figure it out right now. And I wasn't nervous. I was like, oh, you figure it out, I won't. I won't get the job. Like, but you know, whatever. And we got it done, and it worked out. So, like, I'm going to go through the process. But if I don't know something, like, hey, have you done this for a job? Have you done Redux? I had never done Redux. Done React, never done Redux. Can't tell you anything. They'll know that when you start the job, and they'll be prepared for it. It's a, you just, there's confidence in saying, like Aaron, not knowing, but still being like, look, I'm going to solve the problem I bring to the table is problem solving skills, no matter what it is.
So if you have like a whiteboard question, trying to problem solve it and ask questions.
So it could be a question, hey, lists. I know most people aren't familiar with those. You need to find the cyclical dependency. Okay, you know, I'm but a cyclical node or a cyclical reference there. Explain to me the cyclical. Grabbing that question, know that, but you know, ask those questions, and they say, okay, great. So a node has been repeated in the linked list, and we're going in a circle, right, over and over. You just kind of gotta. I'll be honest, I'm not very good at explaining my thought process. I haven't quite nailed that down yet. Tackle it one step at a time.
Actually, there's a very important aspect here that I want to point out to you guys, since I want to keep it top of mind, is how he walked through the problem solving. The fact that Carson, maybe you did know that, but he was giving an example, and he's walking through, he doesn't know his problem solving steps. And he's not lying. Don't ever go in like you know something when you don't know something. I learned that a long time ago when I was younger, not because I did it. I just had a really good trainer just tell me, like, hey, you're going to teach our voice system. Ask you a question you don't know, just say, I don't know. Right? And I was like, all right. Right? But there's nothing wrong, because, again, we're talking about human thing that people forget, which is a big reason why I'm confident and not scared of listening in front of another person. Has a life that really, the connection there might be, I like the way this kid thought through that process and didn't even know what a fucking cyclical was, right? Mm-hmm. Like, cool, he's in. Because it's people we're dealing with. Giving up, you're out completely. Especially if they're looking for someone to grind out a project price. So,
yeah. Question, TJ?
I was just going to make a suggestion. Yeah, you were talking about C++, which is basically pointers, with the doubly linked list where you have the head pointer and the tail pointer. Mm-hmm. So basically, if anybody wants to learn that, you look up the Alex Elaine textbook, Jumping into C++. That's a good book.
Can you text it out?
Yeah, I did before, I'll do it again.
All right.
Cool. So give Aaron a round of applause. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we're going to start going over React. Before we start, for 2 hours. We're gonna start right when class is done. I'm gonna have another review session on React. We're gonna do stuff that's not like from Trilogy. It's gonna be, hey, what are we struggling with? We're gonna bootstrap a React app and just build something together, kind of a thing. I'll stream it as well, so you can go watch it later if you can't stay. If you want to stay, you can ask questions. We'll be going over a lot of stuff. I'm also gonna intro Redux a bit because we don't cover Redux at all in the class. It's fairly simple once you understand it, and it's really important for the React stack. I don't know anyone who doesn't use it with React, so gonna add that in a bit as well. And we're also doing these review sessions next weekend, so 2 more hours after next weekend's class again. So streamers are gonna have 3 streams today. Part 1 of this class before lunch, part 2 after this class, and then there's gonna be the 3rd stream, which will be extra review for anyone who wants to know it. Because I know React is really tough, so we wanna just like beat it into you until you literally can't forget it. Before we start with review, anyone have any like quick questions on React? Something they're confused about that we want to talk about? Sir, anything at all? Tips up.
I'm sorry, I have too many questions.
That's okay.
Refactoring. Like,
Okay.
I don't know, all the videos, YouTube videos I've watched, they'll like start out with something rather simple, and then they'll want to refactor it into, like, what's the best way to think about refactoring? It's kind of a broad question, but.
The best way to think about refactoring. That is a very broad question. It's hard to.
It's like, sometimes like when they refactor, I'll understand.
Why?
But initially, I won't understand, like, why can't you just, like, why do you have to refactor?
What triggered them to say that it's time to refactor?
Right, exactly.
That partially goes with experience. I know that's kind of a crappy answer,
Yeah, I mean,
but eventually what will happen is, nature of it is, you'll write a React app, and you'll go back 6 months later and go to change it and go, wow, this is really hard. I did not know what I was doing. Like, this code is just garbage. Happens pretty much every time I go back to one of my last projects, right? I mean, that's just the evolution of it. And when that happens, you'll eventually say, oh, well, you know, I needed this list or whatever, and I have this component that has a list embedded in it, but I totally could have used this list everywhere else that I needed a list. I should have refactored that. And so the next time you build a new app or whatever, you'll create a component, and it's got a list in it. You're like, you know what? This list is really valuable as a generic kind of like reusable component. I'll just pull it out. React is very, very good for that because a lot of what you're going to do is going to be building things into small reusable components anyway. Like our first training, our initial view of React should be that way, right? So hopefully we can minimize refactoring as much as possible, but that's not always going to happen. A lot of times you'll build your initial stateful component and you'll embed child components in it, and then those can be brought out. A good way to think about it just from a beginner standpoint is, let's build a stateful component. Your stateful component should not actually render anything. It should pass down information, state, to other components to render as props, right? So if you build out your stateful component completely with everything, all your HTML that you're going to render, you immediately know you have a refactor step. And that is, you need to take all the HTML you're rendering out and put it in other components, be it one component or several, depending on what's in there. It'll be in your back pocket, right? It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a new, smaller, more refined and more targeted component in your React app that you can then reuse later. So you've already done a lot of the work ahead of time. So that's like a good thing. When we're building, like, that's my recommendation for everyone who's starting with React. When you build a new app, start with your stateful component that's supposed to encapsulate whatever it is you need to do. Be it it's a Giphy searcher, right? So you need a search box and a submit button and then a list that renders the images. Start with one component, one stateful one that has your search text, has your your on submit handlers and all that fun stuff. Build it all, make it work, looks pretty, wow, we're amazing. Then take out that render code that renders the search box and like the submit button, put it somewhere else. Take out the code that renders the list of results, put it somewhere else. Eventually get that stateful component so it doesn't render anything directly. That's it. When you're in the code and you're actually doing it yourself, it's going to be harder than that. Like, it's easy for me to trivialize a lot of things because I've done it so much. And that's kind of the break point between the instructor and the student. Like there's things that I'm going to know intuitively that you're not. And I might not even think about explaining it because intuitively it just makes sense. You know, I'm like, oh, wow, that's exactly how you do it. And to you, you're like, what the hell did you just do? Makes no sense. So that's where your job as students is to ask me these questions. Kind of a tangent there, but still, hopefully that answered your question. Okay, cool. So let's do a quick review. The good news is the class today is designed for a weekday, so there's not a lot we got to cover. We're going to have one demo on MERN, which sounds really exciting, but you guys will soon see that it's really a lot simpler than we probably imagined. And then from there, it's just literally you guys are hammering out React apps for the rest of the class. So we're going to get a lot of hands-on experience today, which is great. You'll have a bunch of TAs, myself, Aaron here to help you. And then after that, we'll go ahead and do our extra review. So let's go over this React review. Everyone remember these blue slides? They're so cool. See. All right. You can all answer as a class. Not everyone jump in at once, but you know, what event listener do we use to capture changes on an input element? On change. That is correct. Nice. Here's an example. I know this is probably hard to see. Let me see. Cool. Nice. We have this handle input change right here. It's bad boy. On change handler. And we can change something from cool guy, elite or whatever, to a bunch of random numbers. And wow, it just starts changing. That's amazing. Any questions on the on-change handlers? Ben?
That is the on-change handler comes from React.
The on-change handler comes from the input. So are you talking about the handle input change function or this on-change handler right here?
What's the on-change syntax? Is that JavaScript or is that vanilla JavaScript, right?
Yeah, the on-change right here that you're hooking into is just HTML. HTML has an on-change handler. It's just vanilla JavaScript to bake into a class. That's it. That was awesome. How can we conditionally render elements in React? Anyone? The question mark? Yeah, the ternary right there. You can write conditional logic directly inside of the JSX curly braces using the ternary expression or short circuit operator. The short circuit operator, that double OR that we talked about. So you can see here, here's some conditional stuff, right? We have that ternary, there's that question mark. Here's the colon for the false. And we start with an even number. Now it's 1. Wow, it's an odd number. Even number, odd number, even number, odd number. Yeah, nice. It's awesome. Cody?
Maybe it's a completely situational question, but is it best practice to write these sort of conditional rendering statements ternary expressions or doing them?
It's a good.
It depend on.
That's a good question. So Cody's question for the streamers was: is it best practice to use the ternary conditional operator in line? Define these components above the return statement or in another function, or what say you? It depends on what you're writing. If it's something simple like this dot state dot count, modulo 2 equals to 0. This is really simple. Render some text. Inline's fine. If it's a more complex component that has more than like one thing it's rendering, I would put in another function or in the top of the render function right here before you return, and just that's going to be better there. Again, at the end of the day, it really depends on what your team prefers. I think Vaughn said that, right? Personal preference. It really depends on what your team prefers, but simple things can go in line. Otherwise, as it breaks simplicity, there you go, move it. So let's move. What can also write conditional logic inside of a function, which we run inside of a JSX curly braces? I don't know what they were asking. Oh, we can. It wasn't a question. I read it wrong. That makes way more sense. Sorry, I do that sometimes. Okay. So we have a render odd or even right here, right? This function. So this is it plays on Cody's question a bit. We can also return it from a function as opposed to doing it in line. That's cool. You can do that too. Whatever your team prefers. Again, complex stuff, I would do it in a function. Not so complex this, I'd probably do it in online. It's no big deal. What library do we use to handle routing with React? Router, nice, solid. React router, woo! Example again, you have your router component that has rendering in it. 3 different pages. We click on, and it changes what's rendered in the page. You can see here. What's up? Exact path says a component is with that path, like exactly as it says in the path prop. So see how this path is just slash? Because you have exact, the only way you can get to the home component is with just a slash. However, about is not exact, so I could get to about by doing /about /10 /Carson /rocks /this /is awesome. So it would still get to about because it starts with /about and it's not exact. Yes.
So you wouldn't exactly have an exact in that case because.
No, you wouldn't.
Because we have to be able to change the modify it.
The question was, would we use exact if we have like a child route or something that we want to do inside of the page to change the route? Most likely, no. You would not use exact, right? And in that case, that learn more or less that we had in that one example, it's a good example where you don't use it because we had a /contact page, you hit learn. If you did exact for /contact, as soon as you did /contact /learn, you'd get something totally different, and the React router might explode. So that's when you would not use exact. Otherwise, you want to use exact. If there's nothing that can change at runtime, like your home page doesn't, it's always home, right? Use exact. What else do I need to learn about React? Wow, this is kind of open-ended, huh? Not much, really, says Trilogy. So, I'm just going to skip that. You got this. All right. So I didn't write this. I get it. React is hard. There's a lot more to learn. What they're trying to get at is that the things we've covered so far covers probably the 90% of what you're going to use. It's true. It's not true anymore. So assuming you're just doing vanilla React, that's pretty true. We've learned most of what we need to know. You may not know it intuitively yet. You may not remember it all yet, but we've at least talked about it. So, we're there. But when it comes to like the real world and what you're going to be doing with other libraries and interoping with React, that may not be so true. So that wasn't meant as like I'm pretty sure that wasn't meant as like everyone should be React experts. Woohoo, let's all go get jobs. Although it came off that way. So next thing we're going to do, if no one has any more questions, is we're going to start looking at MERN. Again, this is the only thing I'm going to demo today, and the rest of it, well, I'll go over the assignments, but the rest of it's just going to be working on assignments. So what is MERN? Does anyone know the acronym? Mongo, Express, React, Node, MERN. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We haven't done anything with Mongo, but we all remember Mongo with Express, right? We all remember that? So to add the M, you just Mongo and Express. Yeah, we've done it before. There's not much else you have to do. And we're going to show you how you can get the Express server set up so that you can query those JSON endpoints from your React app. So one of the things we've done so far is we use the Create React app to build these little development apps to kind of help us, test our code. And it does hot replacement where it just, you change something, you hit save, it reloads it in the browser for you automatically. And that stuff's great. Create React app by default spawns up a development server that runs on port 3000, and it's there to help you develop. That's what it's there for. So it's not so friendly if you just wanted to deploy that as a production website. It wouldn't work very well. So what you have to do is tie in Express, and we're going to show that. So I have this little create React Express template they gave me, and for the homeworks and for the assignments, we'll provide you with those templates. So you don't have to build it. They're really a lot more simple than I think we would imagine, but I'll show you. So you can see here we have, where's my mouse? The light is blinding behind me. Wow, that's terrible. You can see right here we have this structure on the side in my file view. We have a server.js. This is your traditional Express app, so nothing about this is terribly crazy, although we do have this app get star, which is exciting. And this one is a little different. I don't know if we covered this in any of the Express. Anyone know what that means? It means all. Yeah, that's the wild card. It says, just give me, every time I do a get, just give me the same stuff. And in this case, we're going to send a file that goes to the client folder /build/index.html. Can anyone, before we look at it, guess what that is? That's everything, right? That's the index.html that React Create App will build with our final React code attached to it as a bundle. So that's all this does is say, hey, you're going to query me. I'm just going to send you this React stuff. That's it. It's pretty simple, right? There's not a whole lot going on here. Yeah, we're basically like, well, that's all happening on the client, right? The props and all that's all happening on the client. We're just sending the index.html up to the user, and it renders client side because it's React. So again, this is a fairly straightforward little piece of code right here. It seems like you should need more, but you really don't. So how does this play in with the React Create app? So when we build, we end up with this nice minified index.html with this static JS main, a bunch of random garbage.js. This right here is the final bundle that React Create app builds when you run that start, the yarn start on the Create app. What it has to do is go out, take all of your JavaScript and all of your React, all your JSX, whatever you got in there, bundles it into one file, one really ugly, horrifying file, and that's all of your code. So if I go in here, this is all of your code. This is an entire React app, minified and obfuscated and bundled up. It's pretty beautiful. Look at that. It's work of art. So Kui asked a great question at the beginning of class, or before class started, and that was, how does React get from this index.js to just like being a legitimate website? And the answer is Create React app does some special voodoo in the back to build this build folder that we'll see in just a moment. So the first thing we got to do if we want to get this MERN stack going is we're going to have to run yarn in the top level, and this will resolve the node modules for the Express server. Nice and quick. And then we'll go to client, and we'll yarn in there. And this is going to build all of the node modules for the Create React app. Cool. Now it would run, but let's cover a few things first. We have our package JSON, okay? We've seen those. There's some scripts in here. They're kind of funky. There's 5 of them. You don't need to be so concerned with all of them. At least that's what the homework instructions say, but I can explain them all. They're pretty simple. The test one, right now, it says echo, error, no test specified, and an exit 1. Basically says, this is the default for tests. We don't have any tests. We're just going to put out an error message, and then exit 1 means exit an error code of 1 from the bash. And that tells the computer, the OS, that there was an error and nothing ran properly. So that's basically just junk filler that says, hey, you don't have any tests. So when you do have tests with Mocha or Jasmine or Karma or whatever you use, you would run them from the test command. Build. This one's pretty important. It runs this custom script that they have that builds the server and the client. The server probably doesn't have much to build, right? It's pretty small. So it doesn't do much. But the build script will affect the client. And we're going to look at this specifically, these scripts, because they're kind of funky, right? They're not any tool you could download. They're handmade scripts. But first, let's finish looking at the package JSON. So start right here concurrently. It's running a sweet package that can run 2 processes concurrently. And that's pretty cool. I like that. And it's running a NodeMon on the server.js. Is everyone familiar with NodeMon? NodeMon lets you, run your server as you make changes. It restarts the server automatically. It's beautiful. And it also runs npm run client. And as you can see, you can also, there you have the client command right here. So it's basically running that command as well as the NodeMon server.js. You can also change this to be yarn. Oh, that is not right. You could change this to the, I cannot spell today, I'm sorry. Yarn client, right? Sorry, that's not the right one. Don't do that. So the start command basically runs those 2 processes at the same time, so you don't have to open 2 terminals and run them both individually. Client runs another script, start-client in the scripts folder, which we can assume starts the client. And then server is your actual, like, I'm starting up my Express server like I would traditionally, node, and then your file you want to start. So any questions on these before we look at the files themselves? Yeah, this.
So new yarn first.
Yes.
Under the React Express to bring it Express and hard to client to create React app stuff.
Yes. So remember that just typing the command yarn is the same as npm install. So when we run npm install at the beginning of each pack, every time we're going to use like a package or we're going to start an app or whatever, yarn is just, it's the same way. It's just the yarn way to do it, right? And we use yarn with React. So just a good thing to know. But yeah, you would do yarn or npm install in the parent directory here with the server. And then you have to cd into the client and do it again with the client so your create React app can actually have its node modules. So start client. So these are pretty cool. It has some args, start. It has some options, which you don't have to be too worried about right now. But standard IO is like your input output for the process it's going to run, and it's inherit. So it basically says use the standard IO of the process I'm currently in. Again, that's kind of technical. You don't really need to worry about it so much. Current working directory, that's what CWD is client. So we're in the server one right now, right? I'm in the server. I'm actually in the server slash the create React app slash scripts. I'm down one in scripts. This is saying use the client folder. So when we run this child process, it's going to spawn it from the same working directory as the parent process, which in our case would be this top level create React Express, right? And then it's saying actually start one down in the client. We're going to start in the client. So we can say, deduce from that, we're going to be working with that client code. And then shell true says spawn this process as a terminal, right? Like we would open a terminal and run this. That's what it's saying. Require child underscore process. That's a built-in Node.js library. I don't know if we played with that in class. I can't remember. But basically, it allows you to spawn another process. So you want to open a terminal. You want to open another app. You want to spawn another node process. You can use child underscore process to do that. Spawn is a function in the child process library. It spawns a detached child process. So there's 2 kinds of child processes. I'm not going to explain much, but I'll do it really quick. There's a .exec that you can use, which runs an attached child process, which means that runs and my current process waits until that's done to do anything else. Clearly not what we want to do here. And then there's spawn, which says, go ahead and just run that child process. I don't care about it anymore. And we pass in npm. And you can see here, we're going to pass in the args, which are start. So we're going to run npm start. And then we are going to pass in our options, which tell it what to do. npm here, this first parameter is the executable we're going to run. So on Windows, you might have some problems. npm might not work. You might have to do npm.exe. So remember that. It probably will work, but if it doesn't, that can help you. Worst case scenario, you have to find where this npm.exe exists on your machine and put the absolute path to it. So that sucks, but most likely you don't have to do that. If npm is on the path, you should be okay. Where is that path? If NPM is on the path, it means if you open your terminal and you type NPM and something happens, you're good to go. So there's like a thing called the path on every machine, and you can basically tell it, here's everything I want to run from my terminal so that I can just type commands like npm or node, and it allows you to register those. You can run npm from the terminal. This should work fine. And then, yeah. So any questions on this one? Basically, we're saying folder, we're going to run npm start. That's it.
Pulse. Any assumptions? I guess the best way. Like this completely makes it stable. And I want to justify like really deep diving like what each of these commands are doing and how on what's happening here. Okay. I specifically, that's why Carson's teaching today, right? Everybody understand what he's doing like versus my macro.
Just no start from node underscore react to. This is how you do it. If you want to learn more about child underscore process, you're going to need to go to the docs.
So that's because the client folder is a child of the overarching folder.
Yeah, it's because that create React app is its own process, right? You do yarn start for it, or npm run start, or npm start, right? Because it's got its own, like, I'll explain that a little bit more why we need to run both. But basically, we need to run it on its own, and we need to run the server on its own, and then we need to tell them to talk. So, yeah, this is just saying I'm going to run both at the same time.
Would you ever run more than two?
Sure, if you got more stuff. We have one project I'm working on where I run 4 things at work. It's complicated and it sucks, but and I have to run them all manually, which is even worse. So I have to open 4 terminals, go boom, start this, boom, start this, boom, start this, tell them how to talk, and then work. We could probably make that better, but we haven't yet. So I know this is a really technical thing. Options do, like standard IO, like, again, forget about this for now. If you want to know what it means later, like over break, I can tell you more about it, but just ignore it. Current working directory is good because it says, where am I going to start this process? What folder am I looking in? So with that CWD, that kind of says the client is the child of this parent folder. We need to go in there and look for that node package, right? And then shell true, we're starting this as a terminal. I would open the bash. I would open the command line. I would open any of those. That's what this is doing. It's opening that as a command line. Very similar, except for the args have changed to be run, build. So how can we verify that we want to run those arguments? If we go into client, package JSON, and we have start and build. Some of you might ask a question. How come we could do npm start, but we had to do npm run build, right? Did anyone pick up on that? It's kind of funky. The reason is npm is stupid, and there are certain commands like start, test, pre-publish, publish. Like there's some built-in npm commands that you can run with just npm and that command. Anything custom, like build, eject, compile, whatever you want to call it, you have to prefix with run. So it'd be npm run space my custom command. Why? I don't know. This is why yarn is better. In yarn, you don't need run. You can just do yarn build, yarn eject, yarn compile, yarn start, yarn test, yarn whatever. So yarn's a little bit smarter in that regard. Another one of the niceties of yarn. But that's why you have the npm run versus npm not run, in case you were wondering. There's another thing we see in here, and it is this proxy. This is in our package JSON. Okay? This is for create React app to be able to talk to our Express server. So you can look at our server. We have end port or 3001. So it's going to start by default on port 3001, and we're giving the proxy 3001. Now, I have not used Create React App in production. Alex, I know you have. Can you tell me what we do if we want to have a variable port here? Do you know?
We do use a proxy because we use microservices and everything is standalone. So we do use a CRA to have a variable port.
Okay, so here's a fun thing we get to look in the doc research while you work. Maybe I can find out. You know how in Heroku when we deploy, we have. This is only for testing?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Forget what I'm saying.
There's a document that code is like out on the Saturday Classes channel. It's like a Medium post, or it's just a post on the Medium. That's how I normally deploy Express React apps.
When we get to deployment later today, we have deployment at the end of class. We'll worry about it then. For now, apparently, I have not used Create React App, so I'm not an expert on the proxy, but I do know that the proxy is required to talk to the Express app. Okay, so if you were to run this on a non-Heroku machine, why I asked that question is on Heroku, we need to have dynamic ports so that they can determine what port to run on. If you're going to run this on your own machine, like I have a couple Express apps running on personal Linux machines or VMs that I've rented, okay? Then this would work for production. You could specify what port you want it to run on. No problem. So this is a production-ready model. We can use it for testing. That's one way. But if you need to specify dynamic ports, I do not know how to do that right now. So if you ask, that's the answer. Again, in this client folder, it's just a normal Create React app. There's not a ton going on. They have some little, the example stuff that's built for your Create React app. Why don't we go ahead and start this bad boy up? We can do, if we look at the package JSON for the server again, oh, that's the client. For the server again, we have start runs them concurrently. So why don't we see what that looks like? Remember, we can do yarn start. We'll go ahead and run it. It'll probably open on my machine, so I'll pull it over. Maybe. Oh, there it is. Hold on a sec. We get this fun React app. Welcome to React. And it's running two processes. Again, if I were to show you this terminal right here, you can see starting the development server, right? So we're familiar with that. It's Create React App. And then look at this. That was, ooh, sweet little Unicode character right there, a little Earth. And then the server is now on port 3001. I don't know what the Unicode character is for Earth, so you have to Google that. So, yeah, we've got both running. That's pretty rad. I think so. So why don't we go ahead and let's see if I can expand this to the side. We'll make a quick change to the React side and see if it does the hot loading for us, the hot reloading. Whoopsie. We'll just go ahead and do that. Get that out.
Can you be okay with this? Burn your routing? Can you be okay?
I'm just curious, why are you on like over 3,000?
Okay, that's the question.
Okay. Instead of like both being on 3000?
Right. Because you
Okay, so the server's on 3001, right? It's exposing itself to 3001. This React Create app is launching itself through port 3000. Defaults built in. So the default for Create React app is 3000, and two processes on the same port. You can't. It's impossible. Express to these front-end code has to have a different port, and we just chose nothing. We're to have. Why don't we test that? That's a good one. Quickly, let's go to server.js, and let's do like app.get. Let's do /test. or something, right? We're all familiar with the res.json on Express, right? Let's save it. It's restarting the server. The server should be restarted. If I do 3001/test, let's see if it works. Oh my gosh, it didn't. That's because the all is of it. Wonder if this will work. See behind it, okay. There you go. So things in Express is the order that you do these app.gets and app.uses matters. So because I did the wildcard first, it didn't care about my /test. So that was a good thing. Wildcard should come last, always. There you go. I have, that's port 3001, right? You just get a nice Java message to your API. You could do it in here. We can make it /API/test. This is a testing route for API, right? Because I want to return some JSON or whatever. There you go. This is how that React app comes together, okay? So we have the backend, the server, that you can put all your JSON endpoints on. Every single one you can imagine under the sun. And you would call them with Axios from React. So you'd say, hey, from React, I got Axios, right? I'm going to do to port 3001 localhost /API/test. And voila, you've got this stuff in React. We'll experiment. So it's fun. We can just change it. And it should hot reload for us. Nice. That's calling us a loser. That's lame. Yeah. So this is the gist of how the MERN stack works. Okay. With Create React App, you can do it pretty simply by just having this server.js right here serve up on all your built index.html that is created from Create React App. And then you can just, while you're testing and all that, just change this willy-nilly and see how it looks in the browser and be on your merry way. And then when you deploy it on a production server, you would just do the yarn start on the server. And assuming you have all the other magical stuff you have to set up to actually get to a website on the actual internet, go. So with the Heroku deployment, it's going to be a little different. But we'll have plenty of time to do that at the end of class and see how it works, get everyone familiar with it. This is the gist of MERN. Anyone have any questions on it? Nope.
Are we going into activities after this?
It's just activities after this.
So ask your questions now.
Yeah, ask your questions now.
I mean, you can ask them during the activity, but if there's
No questions during the activities. We're closed.
He's like, screw it, you're gonna learn on Google after this.
Hey Carson, something that might be cool to refresh on the way, mixed with Axios. So you know that.
Okay, so you want me to hit my test, API/test? Okay, so we gotta go ahead and stop this, okay? Because we're gonna have to install Axios. We go to our client, yarn and Axios. Now I'm definitely no Axios Pro, so we get to go through the docs. So you get to watch me. That's not what I want. You have to see how to set it up to a different port because I know that Axios defaults.
Oh, you don't have to. That's the thing. When you have that proxy, you can just hit /API/test, and you're good to go.
Look at. That's why we have Alex here. So we can go ahead and start this. Be okay. I should be able to just import. I cannot spell. Right, import Axios. Our data to that. Remember, we have a component did mount, right? That's where we're going to launch our initial code. And we can do axios.get API/test. Pretty sure it's just a .then. I don't know if the Axios response object comes with anything magical in it, so we'll find out. The one way I like to pull stuff from state that you'll see in like a lot of our apps that we write at Axosoft, like this. Remember that destructuring we talked about? Boom, destructured data out. Okay. So let's just look at it really quick, see what's coming back. Oh my gosh, it died. Oh, sorry. Wrong syntax. You me. Ah! Found object with keys if you meant to render a collection of children using an array instead. I did not. Gosh. Set this to null. So we get to go do some debugging. See if it's even hitting. Failed to load. Respond with the status. 3000 is test. Alex, what are you telling me to do? So let's. Oh, look at that. Remember that? Those cores? Jeez. But here, I can show you how we handle errors. So we can do oh gosh, did not like that at all. Oh my god. All right, I'm making a mess of this. Yeah, sometimes you mess up. See, we get in a Coors error. Let's see if we can get this Coors error to pop in, or if it's going to give me a bunch of weird errors in React. What the heck? Can I read property message of undefined? Okay, well, it's not setting the state on the error, which it should be. I should be getting an error here. Do I have to define it in my state? I can't just add it? Still coming in as undefined. There should be a console log though. So apparently it's saying that there's an error, but it's not actually letting me register the error. It's really weird. Because there was a catch on that. So look, I'm getting an error. What the heck? I don't really know why that's causing that problem, but it doesn't like the error for some reason. Anyway, this is a course error, the cross-origin requests. It's my proxy on my local machine. It's not going to be that.
So what exactly causes the failure? Because I haven't happened yet, and I've heard people talking about it, and I'm infuriated.
So the problem we have is it's called the cross-origin resource sharing. That's what CORE stands for, okay? The problem we have is because we're trying to talk between port 3000 and port 3001, the default response for Chrome is to say, hey, those domains are different. 3000, 3001, they're different domains, okay? They cannot talk unless I say they can specifically. So what I have to add in, I mean, maybe this is another good thing. We have lots of time today. So if people want to see it, I'll try to add cores. I'll try to get this work. If you guys want to start on your assignments, we can do that too. Whatever you think is most valuable. I don't want to sit here, fumble around for 15 minutes. in front of you all, trying to figure it out because got to fix cores. Who knows what else is wrong? All right, then we can look at it. So we're gonna add another one in. This one's gonna be in the server. Oh, hey. Did I not start? I don't know what to look. No, it's still a course error. So yeah, you don't have to sit here while I'm doing this. We'll add cores to the server. I know your whitelist.
I never got that cool one to work.
If you look at the configuration options, configures set origin to be true, reflect request origin as defined by false to disable cores. So we'll see if disabling cores is enough. Again, I'm kind of moving fast on this. So I guess I should have tested this before I started class. I haven't used the create React app with an Express server myself, so that's kind of why. Oh, didn't like that. There's going to be an option here, allow headers. Should be are only supported for might be stupid. No access control, allow origin headers present on the requested resource. So I have to access control, allow origin. Coors sucks. I will tell you that. Oh, my save it. Hey! Message hello. Look at that. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to put in the cores because they're two different domains. I have to set origin to true and allowed headers to star. Star means any header can go ahead and access this cores resource, right? So we're going to go ahead and we have the data and its response. I can actually take that out. Dot data. Cool. That's good. That's what we want. And then let's go ahead and put data.message right there. Oh, man. Cannot read property message of no. Why is it not setting my data properly? Oh, I know why. Hello. There we go. Okay, the problem that was happening, and while it was still freaking out, even though the cores was working, is remember, component did mount does happen after the first render. So the first render came through, and it was always null. And that was what was happening with my error as well. It came in, and it was just and so it would just crash on itself because I wasn't thinking about component did mount happening after the render. However, component did mount fires, I get my data response in, and then I can render it there. So that is an example right there, a very long, convoluted example. And I know it took me a while. That was an example of also how you can figure these problems out. It wasn't so bad. I might have been a little faster if everyone isn't watching me and snickering about how crappy I am at this. But, you know, you got to learn, right? So there you go. That's an example of also how to set up cores. I know a lot of people have struggled with that.
So what are the risks to allowing all headers on cores?
So the risk to allowing all headers on cores, there's a reason why we don't just do that. And the reason is you don't want anyone to just be able to query your API per se. Maybe you do. If you have a public API, you might enable cores for everyone, but then you'll have something like an API key or some other secured means of getting to the API, like authorization or some login scheme. In that case, allowing cores is okay as long as you can still protect your resources. But the reason why we have cores in general is because back in the day, people used to do these crazy requests where they would request data from your website and they would inject JavaScript into it and tell your server to just execute random JavaScript. And guess what? You can do a whole lot if you can execute random JavaScript on a server, can't you? So that's bad news. So they put in cores to say, if I have a website hosted on port 3000, only other requests from port 3000 should be able to talk to that server. Obviously, that doesn't make sense in this case because we have a broken up front end and a back end, right? The server's on a different port than the front end. So you're like, I need to talk to this other website from my front end, but it doesn't allow me because of course, so you have to enable that specific website. So the star is not that fun, right? I don't want to do that, but it should still work if we do localhost 3000. Let's see, we'll verify. Just make sure. Yeah, it still works. So that way I've specified the exact route or the exact website that can access these cores resources. That's the safer way to do it, right? Because only my website can now access it for free without having to worry about the cores stuff. So that's an example, like a brief overview of cores. I know cores is a pain in the butt, but you can get through it. It just takes a little while to debug it. Cool. Any questions on any of the stuff I just did, Cody?
I was wondering if you could go a little bit into why you write AJAX requests inside of the component did mount.
Why we write AJAX requests inside the component did mount. It's the best place to you don't have to do it in component did mount. You could do it in like a handle input changed or on a button click, but it's the best place if you want to load default data into a component because it fires after your first render and it only fires one time. So it doesn't cause an infinite rendering loop, right? Because that's a worry in React, right? You'll accidentally cause a render inside of your render and then you'll render forever.
Worth noting that characters are inside of a variable plot.
Yes, so constructors are synchronous. If you try to do all this fun stuff in there, you're going to get a really crappy looking render process that's going to be all broken and weird. Probably not a big deal on something that's fast like this. Look, we're talking to another process on my machine. There's going to be almost no latency. You wouldn't notice in testing. To production, if you have two servers that are talking that are across the world, or you have a lot of resources, or you have a really big React component graph, and so your users will have this bad experience, it's really hard for you to debug locally. And that is the bane of all programmers. This thing sucks. It breaks in production. As soon as I put it on my machine, it works fine. It happens like literally every day for me, and it is terrible. Especially in Git cracking, because people are like, oh, I have this weird Git config that makes no sense, and you should never do it. But it's all broken, and you're like, well, okay.
So that page actually renders twice.
It renders twice because of this component did mount. It'll render the first time with no data. That's why I had to do this check on data, make sure data even exists, right? And then it'll run the component did mount after it's mounted. It'll get the data back. Once the set state fires, it'll go ahead and re-render. Okay, we have an assignment It's like 20 minutes. Ask questions.
Oh, no, I know it. Yeah. 22 minutes. He was having like, well, I guess we'll do it. It's hard compared to.
really quick on that, the I just did where I had to route to port 3001. Alex was right. 3000 will work because yours was failing. That's what it was. You know, because Alex messes up a lot. It's okay. But he's right. Which makes sense. It's routing through 3001 anyway. So if your course is set up properly, which it is now. Yeah, you can't put localhost on production.
Well, it's opened it up. It's just when I click the version, Errors. That's exactly where I'm at.
It does say right here.
Right, but she's getting compensated. You just have to stand here. Well, there were so many, there were like 5 of them standing around behind me.
Were you trying to nerd or what? Are you getting nerd stuff?
So I think I can go on.
Heard that.
These are all
Yeah, so like we started as a local coach in 2004. It's a
Oh, yeah.
How do we inject the value for that?
I was like, you're Lord.
That's problem. I'm like, how do you write out the value? That's a number. So now we have problems. We have a recipe, right? So, remember how to map, right?
Yeah, so you have to do a question.
So that is, so, we'll grab the recipe.
Sorry, you're
You get it out.
You can get us in there. You have to do some.
So how do you just represent this?
You added that your server data.
Remember up here at the top. So the state is actually property on the side. So it's that state to get to that.
Well, it's.
Sorry. Heartbreaking.
Right.
Now, remember the bacon recipe? It's gonna be inside of that, right?
In the community at that time.
So inside of the map, what's like So what do we determine? What do we actually determine the reaction? Remember why we're doing this? Because we have a
Having all of that stuff open, it takes a lot of research on your computer. It's a lot of information. I would recommend having one or two.
And then
now we know we need title, address. If you're gonna split up the lines, wrap it, are they alike or does it have to be? Now you can split up your lines. So let's look at what we need to render. We're mapping over the rest of the just know the first step is I think so, but I just don't mind. I think just.
I would be right.
No, they don't have it. I don't want them. That's like why all of these. I don't. I have. All right, TJ, you have literally regular.
Yeah, I know.
Do they do jobs?
No, they do not. No. Do they offer the morning?
No, they only offer C++ and Java. Is it like the highest level? The highest level languages?
Do they offer C-sharp?
I think they just offered it. Right after I graduated, they just decided on it. So when I wanted to tell them. Yeah, did you know if, I don't know how big it was, but like a lot of schools in KU did graph in JavaScript, but they taught it in the school of art for graphic design. Is that anything you ever heard about? No, that's a lot of schools that incorporate the developer stuff. They're like schooling. A lot of the stuff I did was high level, but lower languages like machine languages. Right. When you do hardware, because I had to take electrical engineering classes, very cold water program. Yeah. Oh, if you didn't take the gold class, Roy believed you. I had to take the class again because I got the answers right, but if you make one mistake, you get a 0. And the average was a 30% class. Even one kid asked him, because some algorithms teachers are cool to let you use a cheat sheet for exam. He's like, do you allow cheat sheets? I do a ton of cheat sheets. Your question offends me. No, he's like, he wasn't very angry that that shit asked that question. He hated that question. He's smart, but he, like I said, the average 30%. That's how hard he was. And he's like, I do not drop your lowest exam because not actually she dropped your lowest exam, and that's saved my grade.
There are classes like they curve it so the highest.
So when I got a 50 on the exam, I was actually a good class, even though I didn't curve the material.
So just a heads up, if some of you are working solo and having issues, you should be working with team members. Right? There are quite a few people in like teams of 3, possibly even 4 I've seen working together. Get used to figuring this out, because if you're not doing it now, you're going to be figuring it out in the team anyway on your projects. Is there like a bunch of activities that we like?
Yeah, there's a lot of activities today. So
critical, basically, that you think they need to actually happen.
This Ajax delete one we'll do next, and then we'll just go on lunch next. Is noon too early for lunch? We'll do noon. Yeah, we'll do noon. Yeah, and then we can finish these last 2 after lunch.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect. And then you still have stuff afterwards anyways.
Okay, everyone, we're gonna go over this this assignment, and then we're gonna take lunch. And that'll be pretty sweet. Lunch is always awesome. So let's go ahead and go over it. All right.
Keep going if they want to learn it for the phone.
Okay. So we have our app, right? Here's the finished one. The first thing we got to do is yarn both of our sections, right? Our client and our server. Or npm install if you choose. This one it's got a bit more loaded, so it takes a while. We'll run our yarn start. So we'll see what the final product looks like. Recipes. Nice. Let's search for burger recipes. Nice. Look at that. That's pretty cool, huh? What? Yeah. All right, so let's look at some of the code. Our app.js. Quite a bit going on in here. They built a lot of it for you, but one of the big things they asked you to do is build this recipe list, right? Did anyone finish this assignment? No? Cody did? Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, this was a tough one. So let's break down this recipe list component. Let's see if, what else is going on inside of it. Oops. But here's a recipe list. Not a ton going on here, right? That they did it this way. Children, does everyone remember what the props.children does? Anyone tell me what that is?
The props down to the child.
So the child passing the next component, right? So it's going to out component to S right here. You can see that's going to be these recipe list items. So everyone remember this recipes.map? That's just the function that you run over an array. You pass in a recipe because that's what is going to be at each index in that array. So yeah, and then you're going to return another component, which takes in a key. The key. What was that? Yeah, it's like the ID for that component because you have a list of components. It tells React how to render those components. The href, the ingredients, and then the thumbnail. So why don't we take a look at the recipe list item? A little bit more meat to it, right? It still just takes in the props. You can see props right there. So just takes in the props. Nothing too wild about it. All of them in very different ways. So we have our thumbnail here. Okay, so that's going to be the image that we see. We have our title. And our ingredients just going to be a list of stuff. Ref, which is going to be a link to that recipe. So let's pull up that final product again. Right? So here's our thumbnail. This little burger here. Really terrible quality, but that's okay. Title. Yeah, that is a mouthful right there. The list of ingredients, again, just going to be a string, and then go to recipe, which is an href. Nice. Genius kitchen. That is my kind of kitchen. So we kind of really went over that really quick. Again, a lot of these, the fact that we're using MERN for the first time was really what was exciting about this one. But rendering those components, like, this was a really great one to answer Tim's question on when do we refactor. It's very easy to build this UL with the list to render your recipes directly into the app.js. I know a few students started doing that. When you're done with that, that's a good time to pull it out and build your recipe list and your recipe list item. Now, one quick criticism I have is I probably would do this .state recipes map inside of the recipe list itself, as opposed to passing it into the recipe list and rendering it in the list. I don't really know. Might as well do a UL, right? It doesn't, I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me. But that's a choice of them. It does demonstrate right here, passing in the props children again, though, which is a good thing to see, because you're going to need to do that from time to time. Not always, but you might. In this instance, you definitely do. Okay? So I know there wasn't a whole lot of new stuff to cover today on this one, other than that the fact that you had to work with MERN for the first time yourself. So let's look at that. Nothing fancy here. It has a little bit more because there was a form, right? So it's the URL encoded extended false, which you need with the forms, and that's how you can handle arrays and stuff. The body parts are JSON because you're getting some JSON back from the API. So here's a good example. The /API has these API routes, right? So this is kind of what we are starting to do in our little test one that I just did. We have our wildcard last. Then we'll just serve up the index HTML. But then we have the API routes, which is our React router, or not our, sorry, our Express router, I'm sorry. And you can set up the GET request with the recipes. Just calls out Axios. Axios can use front end, back end, doesn't matter. It's a really useful utility. Calls out to the recipe website, returns some data, and then returns that in a res.json, okay? So this is just standard Express stuff at this point. What's up, Todd?
So we're using Burn, but are we using Mongo yet?
There's no Mongo yet. It's just earn. You know, you have to earn the M. Get it? It's just the ERN, Express React Node. But like if we were to take these results and store them in Mongo, and then after that return them back to the website, and then every time we look for the same thing, we check if it was Mongo first or whatever, you know, then you've added the Mongo, and now you've got the verb. So any questions on this old guy before we take lunch? And
Yeah, on the recipe list. I just had caught that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
You didn't have to do it as a proper, like, record. So if you look on, so you can do that.
Doesn't have to be. But remember, if you do that, you have to use this props.children to render the children inside that parent tag. Like that's how that works. But yeah, it's like a pass-through. So it'd be the reason why they might want to do this, where it's a pass-through, is if you always want to have the same classes, or maybe there's some other helper utilities on it. But it's just a pass-through. This is how you do it, right? So it demonstrates that. Again, how if you want to do it this way, have the recipe list as a pass-through for list items, or you want to just pass the recipes to the recipe list and have it do its thing, you can. It makes it so the recipe list items are a bit more reusable. But that's a good thing to think about. Like, will you ever use a recipe list item outside of a recipe list? Probably not. I probably wouldn't, right? But you never know. So this is a good, like, how far do we refactor it? Where do we want to put it? Do we just want to pass these through as child components to the recipe list, or do we want the recipe list to do all the work?
So say you wanted to take that recipe list and, like, I don't know, set up another, like, API where you can, you know, purchase items, right?
Okay.
So you could actually just take that recipe list and then throw the ingredients into, like, another component.
Say you wanted to add a button on the list item that would take you to a shopping cart.
Right.
Right?
And, like, add the item.
So you could add in the recipe list item, you could add a form or something that would have a button or a link or whatever you wanted it to be, a link that looks like a button, it doesn't matter. They would potentially route to a shopping cart with maybe some parameters or something and said, hey, I'm going to add this to the shopping cart. You could just add it there. It wouldn't be a big deal. Probably the recipe list item.
Right. So it's easier than, like, pass.
Yes, significantly easier than how we've done it in the past. Totally. And if talk about Redux a bit, like in the extended sessions, if you get to look at those or you get to stay or whatever, just Redux to do that, because then you can just say, hey, Redux, remember all this stuff I've done, and it will. Like, it's great. Yeah, it's pretty trivial to add a button here and then just have that take you to a new route, and that route can then determine what it wants to do. Questions? Cool. We'll go ahead and go to lunch until 12:45. I'm going to shut down the stream because I'm going to go eat lunch because I'm going to be here a long time tonight. So, yeah, I won't be able to help you right away at lunch because I'm going to go eat. All right. So everyone have lunch, 12:45. I'm going to start up whether you're here or not. Yeah, I can leave that up. No problem.